Hi everyone, my name is Sophie, and today I want to share a story that changed the way I see life. It's not a story about travel, adventure, or even something particularly glamorous. It's about a quiet moment, a crossroads, that, looking back, taught me one of the most important lessons I've ever learned. I hope you'll stay until the end because maybe, just maybe, this story will spark something in you too. All around me, it felt like everyone had their life mapped out perfectly. Friends were getting prestigious internships, posting polished updates on social media about their achievements, sharing news of acceptances to graduate programs or job offers in faraway cities. Even strangers seemed to carry themselves with a certainty that I couldn't relate to, as if they all held secret blueprints detailing every step of their future, while I struggled just to figure out the next day. I felt it in every casual question asked at family gatherings. So, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? When are you going to settle down? Each one delivered with a smile, yet each one landing like a weight I couldn't quite lift. It wasn't that I didn't have dreams. I did. Big ones. But every time I tried to take a step forward, the doubts crept in. Was it the right dream? Would it work out? Was I good enough? What if I failed? Instead of feeling inspired by possibilities, I often felt paralyzed by the endless choices, the invisible timeline ticking away over my head, warning me that if I didn't figure it all out soon, I'd somehow fall behind. There was this unspoken expectation that life had to follow a certain sequence. Graduate, find a stable job, move to a good neighborhood, start a family, build a career. Deviating from that path felt like breaking some ancient, sacred rule, even though deep down I knew that no one's journey was truly that neat or linear. Still, the pressure weighed heavily on me. It made me rush decisions that deserved patience. It made me compare my raw, unfinished reality to someone else's carefully curated highlight reel. It made me second-guess myself until even the smallest step forward felt exhausting. But perhaps the worst part was how isolating it felt. Like I was the only one struggling, while everyone else moved forward effortlessly. I smiled through it, laughed it off, pretending I was as sure and confident as everyone else seemed to be. Inside, though, there was a quiet desperation, a small voice that kept asking, "What if you're getting it all wrong?" It took me a long time to realize that the pressure wasn't entirely external. Yes, it was reinforced by society, by family, by culture. But the harshest expectations were the ones I placed on myself. The belief that I had to have all the answers be a certain age, or else I was somehow failing at life. It was only later, after a lot of reflection, after moments like crossing that bridge, that I understood. Life isn't a test you pass or fail. It's not a race you win or lose. It's a series of choices, discoveries, and experiences. Sometimes messy, often unexpected, but no less meaningful for their unpredictability. And maybe, just maybe, not having it all figured out isn't a flaw. Maybe it's an invitation to explore, to change, to keep growing in ways you can't even imagine yet. One Sunday morning, tired of staring at my laptop screen, I decided to take a walk. I found myself at a nearby park that I rarely visited, mainly because it had this long, narrow bridge that crossed over a small river. For some reason, that day, I decided to stop at the beginning of the bridge. I stood there for a long time, just watching the water. The bridge looked a little old and worn down, not dangerous, but definitely not inviting. It became a metaphor for how I felt about my own life. Uncertain, unstable, yet somehow still standing. I thought about turning back. I thought about how easy it would be to go home, curl up in bed, and pretend I wasn't standing at a crossroads. But then something inside me shifted. I realized that most of my life so far had been lived exactly like that, backing away when things looked too scary, sticking to the safe side, convincing myself it wasn't the right time yet. That afternoon, something very small but very important happened. I stepped onto the bridge. Halfway across, I panicked. It wasn't rational. The bridge wasn't going to collapse. But still, my heart pounded, and I imagined every worst-case scenario possible. Not just about the bridge, but about my life. What if I quit my job and failed? What if I chose the wrong path? What if I ended up disappointing everyone? The fear was so loud that I stopped walking. For what felt like forever, I just stood there, frozen. But then, almost like a whisper cutting through all the noise, a thought crossed my mind. Fear and excitement often feel the same. What if this tight feeling in my chest wasn't just terror, but possibility? Maybe crossing the bridge, literal or metaphorical, didn't guarantee safety or success. Maybe it just meant trying. Maybe it meant living. I kept walking, step by shaky step, until I reached the other side. When my foot finally touched the solid ground beyond the bridge, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was strange. There was no crowd cheering, no dramatic soundtrack playing in the background like in the movies. There was only the quiet rustle of the trees, the soft babble of the river below, and my own heartbeat slowing down. I paused for a moment, letting the realization sink in. I had crossed it. Not because someone pulled me or pushed me, but because I chose to move forward. The world around me looked exactly the same. The trees, the sky, the distant hum of the city. But inside me, something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of pride, not based on external achievements, but simply rooted in the fact that I had faced something that scared me, and I didn't run away. I found a bench near the end of the bridge and sat down. From there, I could see the entire length of the wooden structure stretching back across the water. It didn't look nearly as intimidating from this side. In fact, it looked almost ordinary, almost easy. And I realized how much fear can distort reality when you're still standing at the starting line. Sitting there, I thought about all the other bridges I hadn't crossed in my life. Opportunities I hadn't taken because I doubted myself. Conversations I hadn't had because I was afraid of the discomfort. Dreams I had quietly shelved because they seemed too risky, too big, too unattainable. And I wondered, how much of my life had I already missed by standing still? The thought didn't make me sad. It made me determined. I promised myself that day that fear would no longer be the thing that decided how far I went. From now on, if something scared me, truly scared me in that deep, heart-thumping way, I would see it not as a warning to retreat, but as a sign to move closer. It wouldn't always be easy. It wouldn't always be successful. But it would always be real. And real, I realized, was all I had ever wanted. I sat there for a long time that afternoon, letting the breeze wrap around me like a silent kind of congratulations. Not because I had conquered the world, but because I had taken the first step toward conquering myself. Life didn't magically become easy after that day. I still faced doubts. I still had moments when I wanted to turn back. But the memory of that old, narrow bridge stayed with me. Every time I faced a decision that scared me, whether it was applying for a new job, speaking up for myself, or choosing an uncertain path, I would remember that moment. I would remember that bravery doesn't always look like bold, dramatic moves. Sometimes it's just taking one shaky step forward when everything inside you is screaming to stay put. I also learned something else. Most of the time, the monsters we imagine are far bigger than the ones we actually face. My fear had painted the bridge as something dangerous. But the reality? It was just a walk over a river. Today, years later, my life looks very different. I eventually left that first job and found work that inspires me. I finished my degree, not because I had to, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. I built new friendships, let go of toxic ones, and most importantly, I learned how to back myself, even when no one else did. There's no way to measure these victories on a scoreboard. They don't fit neatly into a social media post, but they are the moments that made me who I am. Every meaningful thing that has happened to me since then traces back in some small way to that decision to cross the bridge. If you're standing at the edge of your own metaphorical bridge right now, scared, unsure, tempted to turn back, I hope this story reminds you that it's okay to be afraid. Fear is not a stop sign. It's just a reminder that you're close to something important. You don't have to take giant leaps. Sometimes one small, trembling step is enough. And when you reach the other side, even if nothing looks different right away, you will be different. You'll be stronger, braver, more yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need a little push today. See you next time.